So we have a look at Collect. Collect sits in the professional advantage billing and credit management area. We have a number of solutions that do different things for users of SunSystems, and Professional Advantage have been producing companion modules for SunSystems for over 30 years now. So everything we do is very tightly integrated to SunSystems, and we carry out various functions to add extra abilities, more focused functionality to your SunSystems environment, but with the surety that it is a tool that is approved by Infor themselves. It has been certified against the SunSystems database and has a very deep real-time integration, meaning that everything you do in Collect or any of the other solutions occurs on a real-time basis in SunSystems, such as account allocation, and any information that sits within Sun that's needed as part of the process can be surfaced on a real-time basis into the module. So, for example, if we're looking at debtor accounts or analysis codes or transactional data, etc., in Sun, it all sits there. The module is available for all versions of SunSystems. So if you're running the SunSystems version 4, version 5, or version 6 stream, there's a corresponding release of Collect that will support this. And there's also an upgrade path that's easy to access, in that if you were to move forward with new versions of SunSystems, there's always a corresponding release of Collect that you can upgrade, SunSystems upgrade, to ensure continued compliance and to benefit from any new features that may exist in Sun that can then be levered within the Collect environment. The key to Collect is the ability to manage your debtor process flow. So if we think about the tasks that your debt management teams need to go through on a daily basis in order to manage your debtors, these can include looking at reports to understand debtors that are creeping over various aging points, 30, 60, 90 days, etc., and then being able to know that you need to target those accounts and have a conversation with them about the payments. It's also about managing those communications, so ensuring that any conversations that occur, be they email or conversations you've had on the phone, etc., are captured effectively against the account and held as history and audit trail, so that you aren't wrong-footed the next time you come back round to looking at that particular account. So if we know that they've said they're going to pay, for example, in the next couple of days, you have said you will then follow up on that with them. You need to be aware of that next time you talk, and indeed you may want tasks coming into a to-do list for you as a user or as a team member in order to ensure that those follow-ups are carried out and there is a consistency to the way you communicate with your customers, and they as well are potentially making promises, so promise to pay, and you want to record that and know when they've met their promises, when they're not meeting their promises, etc., so that you know how to better manage that debtor in the future, or indeed decide you perhaps are not going to deal with them in the future. So all of this information is part of capturing the communication flow, but also making sure tasks are done and feeding into the reporting to give you statistics, audit trail, etc., around those customers. The system does account for account allocation. So this is the ability in SunSystems, when you receive payments coming into SunSystems, to allocate them off against the invoices, and that could be full allocation or part allocation, etc. And typically that's done within the SunSystems environment using standard SunSystems account allocation functionality. But when you're using Collect, you can actually perform those actions from within the single interface. So if you're communicating with a customer, you're about to make a call, you're looking at the history, you can see those transactions, you can see any payments that have come in and make the allocations as you go. So in one screen, one area, you have all of these capabilities, meaning you're not jumping around between different systems or different areas to carry out parts of your day-to-day job role. And payment plans are possible. We can break transactions that exist within Sun out across a number of weeks or a number of months. So if you have a situation where you've agreed a formal payment plan with a customer and you're now expecting them to potentially pay you on a 4-week basis or something, you can actually formalize that within Collect by splitting the transactions and spreading them across those number of weeks with the requisite due dates, etc. So all of that is, again, possible in the same area. As part of capturing notes, it's very important that we can have attachments. So if you have any letters or communications documents that may be associated to an account, we can capture those in the notes and we can see them as part of our history. And that could be outgoing documents that we're sending to the customer, potentially something like a statement or a letter, that sort of thing, or indeed anything they've sent to you, maybe a schedule of payments or a letter explaining their situation, etc. So all of these things can be held as part of the notes against the account within the Collect screen. One of the great things about Collect is the ability to automate some of the things that you do on a monthly basis with you. So those automations could be the dispatch of statements, for example. Maybe you want to do that on demand. Therefore, when you're looking at an account or when you're talking to somebody and they say, hey, could I have a statement? You can actually trigger that immediately from within the screen, and Collect will then send a statement as a PDF document attached to an email to the chosen contact within the customer. Or indeed, you could be looking at something where it's automated. So if you need to send out a statement on a monthly basis and have that generated and dispatched for all of your customers or groupings of those customers at 2 in the morning, that is perfectly feasible within the automation function of Collect and the scheduling of those capabilities. Letters are also an important part of our debtor management process. So we may be needing to send letters at various levels. Letter 1 is a reminder letter. Letter 2 could be a sterner reminder letter. And letter 3 may be something going legal. It's really up to you how that process works. But we can actually automate that within Collect. So we can set up letters within a standard Word document. Collect can populate into those letters all of the required balances, overdue amounts, list of overdue transactions, things such as this using a merge functionality. And that letter can then be dispatched again as an email to a contact within the system. It could be done as a scheduled thing, occurring once a month or whatever, and we can escalate those letters. So if we send a letter 1, then it may be after a certain period of time or a certain amount of aging past that point, you may decide you need to send letter 2, and we can make a process whereby it will send the letter 2s to those that need it once they've had a letter 1 and then move them on to letter 3, etc. So automation of those processes that typically can be manual, that you spend time drawing up the letter, you've then got to email it out manually, you've got to know that when to do that, etc. So having those things nicely built into the system obviously is a big benefit in time saving and cost saving. Additionally, we can have tasks in the system set up to remind you when the next thing is to occur. So when we've sent letter 1, we need to be sending letter 2 in a few weeks' time. That may be a task appearing in the to-do list for a user. So all of these things are feasible within the system. Another nice feature is the search set functionality. This is a very powerful set of search criteria that allow us to generate hit lists of accounts that we wish to have a look at based on our areas of interest. So maybe we want to see things based on 30-day aging or 60-day aging, etc. Or it could be we want to see it based on when they had a call last and they missed a promise date, that sort of thing. So we can build out criteria that use both the ledger information around the invoices and invoice aging and note information within Collect and other criteria that we can apply. So search sets can be something standardized, used all the time, or it could be ad hoc, used by any user to give them a list of accounts that meet their criteria and area of interest, which is a nice feature. There is some reporting in the system, standard age reporting, summary reporting, detail reporting. We can produce PDF documents for DSO or an account analysis where it explains the current sort of situation with a particular debtor. And those are all built in and come with the system, although there is a report designer within the tool that allows us to then build out further reports or amend those reports to meet your needs as well. And the key thing, of course, is it's easy to use. It's a tool that can be delivered out to your entire debtor management team, be they together or spread throughout the business in different geographies. And when you log into Collect, you're using a SunSystems user ID, and it's picking up the SunSystems passwords, etc. However, it doesn't use a SunSystems license. So if you would like all of this functionality delivered to someone in your debt management area, but you may not want them to necessarily be using a SunSystems license all the time, or indeed they may not even access SunSystems, that's perfectly feasible with Collect. So it's a concurrent user license up to a certain user count, and it can be any users that are then using those licenses at any time. So easy to implement, easy to use, and it's something that can be used by anyone in the business. So that's sort of the standard features of Collect. The system obviously relies upon SunSystems in terms of where the data comes from. So one prerequisite is that you are dealing with your debtors within Sun. You have your detailed debtor list, debtor accounts with customer codes associated to them, and that the invoices you're going to be managing are actually pushed into SunSystems to start with. They are there, they're sitting in the ledger, and we can read them and understand them within Collect. So it does require SunSystems to be your debtor ledger in terms of where that data is. So once an invoice has hit Sun, it then can be examined, managed, and dealt with through the Collect process, and ultimately it will be paid and closed off in the SunSystems environment. And that's the process we're looking at here. Collect has been around for many, many years. It's broadly implemented for global SunSystems clients, and there's plenty of referenceability around the solution. So if anyone's interested in some of those customer stories, certainly that's something that can be easily provided to help make a decision around the use of the system. So I'm now going to escape from this area and go into our actual demonstration. I'm going to be using Collect sitting on one of our servers. It is a desktop tool, so we would just install Collect for any users who are going to need to access it on their machines, or potentially on the Citrix or terminal server if you prefer to deploy your SunSystems in that form. And anyone who then can access those machines can then go and log into Collect either using a SunSystems user ID or potentially through a pass-through or single login type environment, meaning that it will pick up who you are as a Windows user and pass you into Collect as the correct SunSystems user associated to that. So a number of different methods there that can be used to meet your requirements. I'm going to log in as the user PAS, general sort of administration user. When I go into the system, this will take us into a landing page. And for any particular user within the environment, we can actually choose a landing page. So you could have people landing into this area, which is the workbench. Very good place to land. It's a general tool for examining the situation around an individual debtor account. Or potentially you could have people landing into a to-do list, or they could be landing into a search or a search set. Really depends on the individual choice of the user or potentially the administrator as to how that's going to work. When we log into the system, you'll see along the bottom some sort of core information being surfaced. I'm logged in as the PAS user. I'm into a particular business unit in SunSystems, and Collect, as with all of the PA products, understands all of the base SunSystems concepts when you install the product. So immediately upon installation, it picks up business units you have, the account structures, the analysis structures, all of that is there, and it's real time. So if you make any changes within SunSystems, create a new business unit, maybe create some extra accounts, all of that becomes immediately available within the Collect environment, and there's no interfacing or reconfiguration required to achieve that. So very scalable solution around SunSystems. I can change business unit. So at the moment I'm looking at AP1, and therefore I could be examining debtors within the AP1 business unit of Sun. However, if I wanted to, I could use the change business unit function to go and choose to jump into any other business unit we have set up within the system, and obviously then examine the debtors within that area. You can also look at different ledgers if you wish. So typically debtors are going to be in your A ledger, or actual ledger of SunSystems. However, in some cases you may want to choose a B ledger or something else to have a look at, and we can decide to do that when we look at the system. So I'm going to stay within this business unit, and the first thing we're going to have a look at is this workbench scenario here. So within the workbench, we can choose an account code. So if I go and hit the drop down here, we will see a list of the debtors that exist within the SunSystems environment. And as I said, any new ones would immediately appear. Any of the drop downs within the system have a sorting and search functionality. So we could search by account name, by account code. We could also use the filters on the grid here to go and choose either from within the list, or use a custom filter to search for things maybe to type ahead and search for, or potentially choose something like contains, doesn't contain, that sort of thing. And this is standard functionality within most of the Professional Advantage products in terms of any grid that you see within there. I'm going to choose the top one in the list, the European Guidance Systems. And when we go in here, we could end up in a number of different areas. So each of these tabs along the top can bring us different types of information from within the system. And you'll see here that I'm sitting now in the Customer Detail tab. So if I'm sort of starting my journey of a day, wanting to talk about this customer, maybe communicate with the customer, it's important to have all the information at your fingertips. So here you can see customer information surfaced from within the SunSystems environment. So we can see the name of the customer, the status of the account, their payment method, their payment terms that are associated. So obviously when SunSystems goes and post an invoice, it applies a due date based on that have been associated to that account, and you can see those things here. We have things such as the credit block, credit check entries that have been set up in SunSystems. And then over on the right-hand side, we have access to the customer analysis dimensions. So within Sun, we can apply up to 10 analysis dimensions to a transaction, perhaps known as T-codes to some people in the SunSystems 4 world. And then we can also apply the same thing to an account at account dimension level, but also at a customer dimension level. So I've got a few set up here, things like currency code, customer type, price list, so that the customer analysis tends to be used for things that are more commercially explaining something about this customer. So maybe the region, the account manager, what type of custom they take with us, that sort of thing. But we could also have account dimensions, which are maybe more about grouping of accounts into certain reporting categories, that sort of thing. So here we can see what's been set for the customer. So this customer type is a wholesaler, for example. However, if I wanted to, I can change them from here. So if I didn't want to have to jump into Sun to make a change where maybe they jump between regions or between account managers, that sort of thing, we can immediately hit the drop down, choose from an existing list of those dimension and codes within SunSystems and swap them around. And that would then update the record at the customer level within SunSystems. So one-stop shop doing these things in one place. Moving across the tabs, we can also see the account dimensions. So the account dimensions are, the account details. So the account details, same thing, but now we're actually looking at the customer detail the account detail rather than the customer detail. So account is the account code, the account balance. So that's the outstanding ledger account balance for this particular customer. You see the credit limits that's been set, and these account analysis dimensions with the same functionality for editing them within here, maybe moving them into a different reporting category or some such. Now, obviously, this is picking live information, but this account balance is dynamic. If we're allocating in the background, making payments match receipts, invoices, etc., then that balance will change. And every time we refresh the screen, it will pick up that new live balance for us in the background. Another area of interest, obviously, is contact. So if I'm going to contact this customer, who is it that I'm going to talk to? So what we can see here is a list of the contact records associated to the account in SunSystems, and I've got one here called Penny, which could be my default contact. We're not creating contacts for the customer in Collect itself. We are actually creating them in SunSystems and then surfacing them here for the purposes of use by Collect. And if I was going to ring someone about the account, this contact could be my accounts payable contact customer. I can see their email address if there is one. I can see their address, their telephone number, etc. So this immediately gives me the ability to pick up the phone or send an email to them at this stage if that's what I wanted to do and know who I'm talking to. If I wanted to capture more contacts over time, obviously I can add them into Sun and then they become available for use within the system. We could have a look at aging. Very nice area of the system. This gives us the ability to see the current transactional detail for this particular customer aged by to-do lists aged by aging bands that we've set up within Collect. So on the left-hand side in this grid, we can see that as of today's date, we have transactions and value that's unallocated sitting at the 90-day point, 30-day point, 60-day point, etc. And these bands can be defined to meet your requirements. So some clients would set up things for 30, 60, 90, pretty standard type of aging. Others maybe use 14 days, 7 days, that sort of thing. But it's entirely up to you. So we can define these to meet your requirement. And you can see here that when it ages the existing transactions, we can see I've got a lot of balance sitting at this 90 days and above band and the over 90-day band. Maybe I'd have some at current if there were new invoices being posted into the system. This can be, of course, broken down by currency. So we understand the standard concepts in Sun of currency codes and the other amount, the reporting amount, etc. And we can decide what we want to see here. So we can actually decide to have only one currency, maybe it's the base amount, or we could have another currency showing if we're interested in that sort of transactional amount field. We can change it by just choosing which ones we want to see here, and this will take it on and off the grid if it weren't relevant. So I could actually take off the yen, for example, if that was something I'm not interested in. So that's quite dynamic. And then here on the right-hand side, we can see a graphical representation of the same information. So this could be a graph, maybe a bar graph, maybe it could be a pie graph, area graph. So up to us how we use this. Some people don't use the grids, the graphs at all. Others decide that they are interested in the graphs. It's nice to have a pictorial option to see this type of information. And you can customize the graph slightly to choose what's going to appear on what axis, what series we're using, maybe that's position, that sort of thing. But it is a set of standard graphs and KPI options that we can put in there around the aging if we wish to. Moving on along the tab, if I was going to make a call to Penny, in this case, for this customer, potentially I'd like to know some statistics around their previous activity, information at my fingertips that allows me to not be wrong-footed and make the right decisions in how I'm talking to this customer. So here, we're giving you a live representation of transactional value that's sitting at different points. So for example, year-to-date values, period-to-date values, we can see the last invoice, how old it was and the amount, the largest invoice, when that was. We can see the average days to pay and DSO, which obviously is a very important and standard debt collection measure that most people would apply. So if I'm going to ring Penny about this particular account, I then have this information. We have, you paid this much then, this is how much you paid year to date, this is how much you've been invoiced, that sort of thing, which helps feed my conversation and ensure that you have the information to back up your arguments and counter anything that they may be saying which is potentially incorrect or slowing down the process of getting this debt brought in. If we want to, we can export this out to PDF or to Excel, but obviously it is available on demand within the system. So if we go back to our aging area, obviously balances are great, but we want to know what makes up these balances. So Collect gives you the ability to drill down into any of the aging bands at any time and see the transaction information underneath it. So I go and click here on this balance and double click. This will then open a separate tab on the right-hand side showing a list of all the SunSystems transactions that make up the balance in this particular band. So here we have 693112 as our balance in that band, and down the bottom we can see that this is the balance of this grid. The information here is coming from Sun. It is the actual SunSystems journal transaction detail. So we can see things like period, date, journal number, journal type. If we're using any analysis codes, transactional analysis codes like departments, cost centers, that sort of thing, they would appear here too. And as we go across, we can see really the vast majority of those SunSystems standard fields you would see in the journal. Entry date, entry period, conversion rate, all of these things are here if they're important to us in what we're looking at for a transaction. But the key things really are obviously going to be our referencing, our description of that particular invoice line, the date, the due date that's been applied for that payment, that sort of thing is most important. Within the grid, we have lots of functionality that allow us to view information in different ways. And the first thing is moving columns around. We can very easily grab a column and decide where we want it within the grid, and that can be a user choice that will retain that for the next time you log in. We can also sort up and down by any of the journal lines. So if I wanted to sort by due date, do that just by clicking up and down. I could also filter. So if I had descriptions here, decided I wanted to search for something particular, I could choose a custom filter. Maybe it's like something that has a certain reference in it or a certain name or whatever. Maybe it contains that sort of thing. And that would then apply a filter which can be retained within the system. So if I put other in here as a filter, so it contains other in my description, when I say OK, what we see is it puts down here a perpetuation of that filter. So I can turn it on or off at any time. Obviously, my filter's not picking up what I wanted to pick up, but the point is it's there and it's held within the session. And I can set up as many of these as I like. So I could actually go and set up another filter on a different column and build out a set of filters to show information in the way I wish. Additionally, if you wanted to go into a more complex area, we could use the customization around a filter to add as many different criteria to this filter as we like across columns. So we can choose different columns to form part of the filter. We can choose different logical arguments in each one and define how we want that to work, saving the filter, of course, as well for future use. So filtering, very important to be able to allow your debt managers to find the information they want in relation to a particular customer or transactions within their system. So grid functionality, pretty standard. Another thing people quite often like is the grouping capability. This means we can drag any of these columns up into a grey area at the top, let go when we have little green arrows there, and that would then give us balances based on that particular column. So balances by period in this case, and you can see it shows the balances here, and if I open it up, it will show the transactions that sit under each of these lines. And similar to a pivot table, we can continue to pivot. So I could say, now let's do this by potentially the journal type or by the reference. So if I drag reference up, I've now got period by reference. So under each of these, maybe one or more, and you see the balances at each of those levels. Again, the grid can be exported directly to Excel if we want to text, to XML, and we can print it and preview it as well. So this provides some degree of the reporting functionality as well, for you to be able to inquire on what you want, have a look, and then filter and bring it out as part of your reporting. So I'm going to just drag those back down again. Of course, we also can, if we wish, change the columns that are visible here. So I can actually edit the columns, and that would allow us to choose which columns are on the visible list and which ones aren't. And the great thing is we can combine data coming from the ledger with data that's related to potentially the account. So, for example, if on the grid I wanted to have the address details for the account or the account type, that can come on here as well as the ledger transactional details. Going down, we've got discount rates, general descriptions, all of those fields that you may or may not want to appear here from your ledger or account records. And that's important to the flexibility of the system. Now, this view, we are looking at unallocated transactions, and we're looking at the balance of this particular aging band that we've got here. Some cases, you don't want to look at aging band balances. What you want to look at is transactions that are actually across the entire account aging. And to do that, we can actually skip from the aging area and jump into the transactional area. And this will then take us to exactly the same grid, but the grid will now be based on all transactions rather than being related to that particular aging band that I've drilled into within the aging tab. And here, same functionality for the grid. We can see it's unallocated transactions, but potentially I want to see allocated transactions or all transactions, perfectly possible within here. And from within the grid, I may see something that could be allocated. So as I said earlier, we have this one-stop shop for account allocation. I can choose some lines. I can go to the allocate function at the top, and this will then give me a split screen where I can choose which lines I wish to allocate against the ones I've chosen. So in the account allocation, perhaps here I have a payment that I want to allocate against this particular invoice, or maybe it's a one-to-many, many-to-many. It's up to you how this works. I can add it to the allocation at the top, as long as this balances to zero. In this case, it won't, but if it did, when I close the allocation, it will now actually put an A marker on both of those transactions in SunSystems and allocate them and link them together in exactly the same way it would have occurred if I'd done it within the SunSystems account allocation function. So very easy to just clear things off where payments are coming in. Of course, in that process, maybe you've got part payments and need to look at splitting. So we can split a line in the ledger. Just from the bottom here, I can go split. This gives me the ability to then either choose one single split or multiple splits, decide on the values and split them out. And this will then insert journal lines into the transaction in Sun, similar to SunSystems again, and allow you to take part of that as an allocated transaction, leaving the remainder for future activity. And you can build payment plans from here too. So if, for example, that invoice I wanted to spread over 4 weeks, I could choose 4 in my number of splits. I could choose to split basis being weekly. And then when I do the equal split function, it will give me a breakdown of this with the required amount per week and the due dates assigned for a 4-weekly basis in there. And that would then formalize the payment plan with the due dates updated. And that would then come into my aging and how I'm dealing with that particular transaction going forward. So nice, powerful, easy to use allocation function available within the single area of the system. Another area around our grid here is the ability to set due dates. We can update a due date in SunSystem for a transaction. So if there was an error, or potentially you'd agreed a new due date and just wanted to push it on within the ledger so it fed into your reporting, that can be done by just literally choosing a date here, and then it will apply it to the transactions that we've chosen. So Easy to look at transactions. If you did have a system that fed into SunSystems to give you the journal data, maybe the invoice information itself is held in another system, which could be the Professional Advantage Contract Service Billing module, for example, nice easy invoicing module for SunSystems, but it could also be something external. We can actually drill from a transaction here into one of those systems. So it could be a defined external system such as CSV, or it could be a SQL drill, which we can build as part of an integration to drill into something somewhere else in any relational database that may be relevant. So here we can build out a set of SQL to go and look somewhere else and find information that isn't held in Sun about this particular invoice. And once that's built, we can then drill into it very simply from within Collect. So that could be an additional integration you may want to look at as you were to implement the system. Another area that's very important around the grid is the ability to drill to details. So on this line, I could click details. That would then open up the transactional detail in a nice form view where I can see all of the journal information, any extension fields that are applied, additional detail fields. So I don't have to have all columns on the grid if I don't need those sort of things. So that's transactions, simple to view, easy to view, and real time from SunSystems. A very important area of the system is the ability to capture notes and information against an account. So if I'm communicating with this particular customer, maybe I've looked at their contact details, I'm going to give them a call. What I want to do is record what was said in that call and note it for history, but maybe generate future tasks as well. So if we go into the note area of the account, I can go new note and generate a record of the communication. So I could choose the contact from the account. I talk to Penny, for example, and then I can apply an action code. So action codes can be set up to meet your need. So I've got things like call made, call to be made, send a statement, send a letter, that sort of thing. But really this list is up to you to follow your debt collection process. So whatever you do, the typical actions that you take or it could take, we could build into this action list, and then they can be coded into the system for you as part of the implementation. So here I'm going to say call made to client. That's the action I made. It's assigning this to me as a user, although I could assign it to somebody else if I was capturing someone else's activity or assigning a future task for somebody. And then I could say, in this case, it's already done. It's not going to generate something in the future. I've already taken this action. We can assign the date. We can assign an action date, which was today, and a promise date. So if the client, as part of this note, made a promise and they were going to do something within a certain time frame, I could actually record that date here. So I'm going to say it was they're going to pay tomorrow, 17th, and put a note in. You can see it defaults in some basic information from the action code, call made to client. But I'll just say, talk to Penny, and she will pay tomorrow. Very simple note, but it could be something much more complex than that if it was relevant to the conversation. I can then save this, and I've got a basic record held in the system for that particular conversation. So if I go to listing, this shows us a list of all the notes I've historically captured for this particular customer. And you can see that they're color-coded by action type. So invoices are blue, green, blue, we've got calls, send email, etc. So these are just color-coded based on the action code to help you understand what you're looking at there. And in this grid, I can sort and view what I've been adding into the system. So obviously it could be something I've done today, it could be something I did 3 years ago. But the point is we have a historical, ongoing analysis of all of this communication. So here is my note at the top of the screen. It's a done note, and it's just recording that conversation. I can open it up and look at it at any time. What I may also do in looking at a note is add attachments. So here I can open the attachments area, choose a document that has been sent to me and attach that to the note, forms part of the history and the audit trail. I could even drag, if I wish to, a message file from Outlook into somewhere down here on desktop and drop it in, have the message file associated. So there is a form of email integration for incoming emails that allows me to do this sort of thing. If I wanted to, as part of this, I could also attach transactions. So there are two different ways of dealing with notes within the Collect module. The notes could be at the account level, i.e. talking about the entire balance, or they could be at a transactional level where I'm talking about a particular invoice within the system. So if I wanted to, that could just be something I write in the note, or I could formalize it by going to the attached transactions area, choose an invoice sitting within SunSystems or indeed number of invoices if I wanted to, and attach them to the note. So that then associates that journal line number permanently to the note, giving me that history and understanding, and additionally gives me the ability within the note to see what was actually attached. So when I go back into the body, we can push a summary of the transactions that I'm talking about into the note body, as well as holding the actual transactions associated in the background so I can go back and see them. You don't have to have the summary in there, remove them, but that's an optional function for the user. So we have both transactional level notes and notes that sit at the account level within the system. So what I've done here is recorded a note that was something I've already done. However, maybe what I need is a note about something that I'm doing in the future. So I've recorded the fact that I've talked to her, but I'm going to remind myself or someone in my team that next week we need to chase this up. So here, when I record a note, here's another new one in this case. I'm going to choose a note to Penny. I'm going to choose a different action code. Maybe it was to send an email to them about something. I'm going to say it's still mine. The date was today. However, the action date is to do this potentially tomorrow. So tomorrow, I'm going to do something. Send an email to Penny about the statement detail or whatever it was she'd asked about. Maybe it's just follow up with them next week to check that they've taken the actions they wanted. So either way, we can record a future action. So when I do this and save it, this will record the note for me. So if I go and have a look at the note in the listing, I'll now see that I have something here ready to go in terms of a note action. However, I'm generating something on my to-do list. And this is the other key area of the system, ensuring you do the right tasks and have the consistency in talking to your customers. So as a user, when I log into the system, when I go into my to-do list, maybe I land here when I log in, these will be the things that I have outstanding for today. So the first thing I would do in the morning would be to work through this task list. Sure, I've taken all those actions, followed up on anything I needed to do from previous activity before I then move on to new activities. So here you can see that we're viewing our task list for this particular user based on action types. So I've got a lot of outstanding actions that I haven't taken yet in different action types. And I could click on these to see a list of all of those actions, or I could view it potentially by date. So this is a calendar-based function. And we can see for the user in each day, the actions that have been assigned. So there's nothing here, but if I go forward here to Wednesday, you can see I now have that action that I assigned to myself. So one action of a send email type, and it was to actually go and say, call Penny or email Penny. And I could open this up and have a look at it. And in each of these boxes, it would show the categories as well. So if I have one send email action, one call action, they'd all be separate in their boxes with different color coding associated. So I know when I come in tomorrow, this is the first action on my list. I can open it up, have a look at this note, see what was said, anything associated to it, and then I'm ready to go. So I could then jump directly from here into my contact details, contact Penny. Maybe I'm going to give her a call. Maybe I'm going to send her an email. I could do the email separately if I wanted to, then record what I've done. Or indeed, we can also create a note and then from within the system, send the email directly as well. So we do have this email functionality that allows us to email from within the system. So send the body of the note out to a customer. So when you're talking to them, this is what I'm said I'm going to do. This is what you said you're going to do. Click send. The note gets sent to that person automatically as an email. And then you've got a confirmation on a live basis. So to-do lists, very powerful. And additionally, we can do this by users. So if I'm a manager of a team, I can see what actions have been associated to members of my team. Maybe I need to go in and reassign some if people are away. That sort of thing is all feasible within there as well. If we're looking at the customer details, another thing we may want to do at any stage is, in the workbench, customer detail, is to send a statement. So we can do this on demand. So if I go and click on any account here, I could be looking at any of these tabs and go send statement. This gives me the ability to choose the statement layout that we have, and we can build a report to meet your requirements with your logos, etc. Although Collect does come with the standardized statements available to you. We can choose some date ranges, some issue at dates, the account codes, and other selection criteria around the way this particular statement will be generated, maybe what transactions are going to be on there, allocations, that sort of thing. But then We can either preview it, save it, or email it directly to the customer from here. So I can send it as a PDF or an RTF. I'm just going to preview it in this case, and it will show the standardized statement for this customer. But the point is we can do that at any stage, directly from within Collect. When I'm on the phone with Penny, I could say, oh, you need a statement. Cool, click, done. You've got the statement. Great, let's get on with our conversation. So here we can see it's breaking it down, showing various information from the customer record, the outstanding transactions, that sort of thing. But this layout can vary drastically depending on what you need. This could be saved off into PDF, Excel, Word, sent by email, printed, all of these things can be done from within there. So that's our standard on-demand statement functionality. Moving to the more powerful features in terms of automation, we can also send these statements as a scheduled update for all customers. And when we send that statement, maybe what we want to do is have it generate a note that actually says statement sent and have the attached statement on that note. So we can do that sort of thing as well, along with letters. So moving to that area, if we look at search sets, this is the area where people can start then doing the actions every day beyond those things already in their task list. If you've done your task, you need to look at a new hit list for accounts that you wish to start looking at. So that could be, just give me a list of everything where an account has 30 days overdue or 90 days overdue, that sort of thing. So these are predefined search sets, which they could have been done by you or by the administrator that you could use every day. Or we could have ad hoc search sets where you have particular queries and questions about a list of accounts and you start to generate them yourself as a user. So here I'm going to just run one that's already set up. I have one called account list, 30 days. It's predefined, I can run it. It applies all the criteria and immediately gives me a list of accounts that meet those criteria. So this would be anything with 30-day transactions overdue. So I have a nice list of accounts here, and I can see the balances, some totals, contact methods, some basic information, and then I can start from the top and start working down. So from here, for this account 6401, I could view the transactions that make it up, so the actual balances. I could see the account details and start working on the account, calling the contacts, recording notes. It's up to me how I want to do that. But the point is, it's a hit list based on selection criteria in the background. I've also got the option, if I wish to use these in a way that generates either a statement or generates a letter. And that's an interesting part of this. So I could have a search set here, which was my letter generation monthly. And that would then generate a list of all accounts based on whatever criteria I wish. And it would then pass these accounts to a process action, which would be potentially send a letter or send a statement. And this is where we can begin to either do this on demand, generate a statement, send it to all these accounts right now, or it could be something where it happens automatically at 2 in the morning by running this particular search set to achieve that. So here, around my process actions, I can set up some predefined ones, send a letter, send a statement, or I could have ad hoc processing actions. I'm going to choose ad hoc, and we can see that I've got options here. So do I wish to generate a statement for all of those accounts? Yes, I do. This is my statement report format to use, maybe some comments to put in. Maybe I want to, as part of this, age them by due date or by transaction date within the statement. And how do I then want to send that? Do I want to email it? And if it will go to the individual customer contact, default contact, maybe I want to save it, maybe I want to attach the statement as a zip file. We have these sort of options. And we could print or save the information as well, if that's what I wanted to do. So we've got options as to how we dispatch and save the information. So that's an ad hoc process. However, I could also, down the bottom here, start to create notes around it. So when I send this statement to these accounts, on each account, create a new note, assign it to an action code, which could be statement sent, and attach the statement to it, if that's what I wanted to do. Maybe put a comment, so sent a statement. So when I send that batch process and generate a statement for all the accounts in that process, we will automatically have a note appearing saying we've done so with the attached statement on it. And additionally, we can add a follow-on note, which could be to chase them about the outcome of that statement. So maybe I've sent the statement, this one is going to make a call, and my comment is going to be, they got the statement. And maybe what I want to do is have that created as an action for me 2 days from when the statement was sent. So we have both the initial touch of it being sent as a note and an additional follow-up action being generated into my to-do list. Very powerful, Very easy to use once they're defined for you, or indeed if you want to do ad hoc type things. We could, instead of sending a statement, send a letter. So if we wanted to send a letter, what we would do is, instead of choosing this option here, we could choose generate a letter, and that would then allow us to choose a Word template file, something that's been defined in the background for us to use. That would have your own letter written out to say whatever you wish, with certain merge fields in it, which we can provide from Collect to pass the information we wish into the letter. And that would then again be sent out, kept as a note, attached to the note as needed. And we can automate the escalation. So as I say, letter ones can go, then letter twos, letter threes, that can be part of the process we design during the implementation of the product. So how do we get a search set? Ad hoc search set here, very easy to define. We have lots of criteria in here around count information, balances, credit limits, analysis coding, priority codes, all of the standard stuff around a customer merged with some stuff that's about debt collection, credit limits, balances, things like this. Down at the bottom, we can start picking by transaction types, certain invoices, that sort of thing. Aging bands, so everything within certain aging bands are defined, or a custom band. And even extracting transactions or accounts where they meet certain note criteria. So for example, where there has been a letter one sent within a certain band range, so maybe minus 1 week from now. So for example, there it's going to pick every account where a letter one action has been added to the account within the last week and bring those accounts forward into my list. So using these things, maybe even incorporating promise dates, I can get some very granular, very powerful type of reports and hit lists out of the system. So that's something most people really get into using to make their life easy in understanding what's going on with customer. Just to finish things off very quickly, obviously we have some reporting. Reports are standard. We have quite a few of those within Collect. However, we can produce, as I said before, custom reports if needed as part of a design. If I wanted to have a look at an age summary report, I could choose to do this across a range of accounts or a single account, depending, and it will give us information based on the transactions within the system. I'm going to just preview a very basic age summary report here. This is pretty much an account listing. Actually, that's more basic than I anticipated, that one, sorry. Apologies, I've used the wrong report there. Let's go back. Change to a different report. Aging summary, let's try that one. And we're going to do it by transaction date. Hopefully that will produce something. There we go, it does help if you use the right report type. So here you can see basic summarization of transactional detail in relation to this particular account, with the amounts, with the days outstanding, the terms, percentage overdue, any actions and note details that were associated. So we can actually include notes that were attached to various transactions within the reporting if that's something we wanted, just to bring that forward and understand. Here, see, I have note, most recent note detail. One of the reports I really do like is the ability to do a debt recovery analysis. And this is a good report for just discussing an account. Maybe you want to talk about it internally, just a snapshot position of a particular debtor. So here you can see the name of the account, the contact details, credit limit, summary of the aging position, how many bands they have, how many invoices sit at different bands, how old they are, that sort of thing. And then a history of the most recent notes and call summaries that we have there as well. So a number of different reports to do different things, but it really depends on what's needed, and we can develop those out as required within the system. If you have any customers where you have multiple debtor accounts that actually are part of a head office account and you wish to view them as a whole group rather than individual debtors, we can do that. We can group customers together either using a SunSystems customer code or an analysis dimension, and then see the balances across multiple accounts. So for example, if there's branches you deal with and you wanted to see the overall position for that company rather than the individual debtor code branch position, we could choose one of these. I'm going to just do direct. And when I do this, you can see now the total balance of all of those accounts. We can see down here the statistics for all of those accounts, the aging for all of those accounts. So, you know, it's listing a number of accounts, grouping them together from a debtor code point of view, but then bringing you the summarized statistics, summarized aging, and the ability to see that information in one go. So that's a powerful tool if you deal with multiple branches or different parts of an organisation. So that brings me sort of to the end of a very whistle-stop tour of Collect. That was obviously very speedy, and there's a lot more we could talk about around search set capabilities and use and how that process could be defined. But I think you'll see that this is very much a holistic system for giving you management of your debtors, visibility, reporting, capturing actions, ensuring you have the right communications and the flow of those communications, and ensuring you get the tasks pushed to you as well within the to-do list, all within the one interface and integrated deeply to the Collect capabilities. So that brings to the end of the demonstration.
Thank you for coming along today, and we appreciate your time. Should you have any more questions in relation to Collect, please feel free to contact us at info_uk@professionaladvantage.co.uk or visit our website www.professionaladvantage.co.uk or our corresponding United States and Australasian websites. Thank you.